like we're doing that.
Woo! Woo! Okay, we have a live thing now. Let me see. I'm going to double check. Hey, everybody, for you just joining us. I'm testing right now because last time I had like a little snafu on my end. Welcome to the Because You Love to Hate Me live chat. Woo! Now, because last time I had like a little snafu on my end. Oh, you got me. Wait, it's okay. You know what? This is what happens when you have to stage. You gotta stay with it. Wait, so how do we fix that?
You can't go
well, 40 people watching. So
Yeah. Excellent.
So let me go. Okay, we do have viewers. Hey guys, we're just getting our little selves together here. So do we no longer have the echo? Oh, great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think we're good now. We're good. So you guys have done live chats before. First, before we start asking any questions or anything like that, I do want to make sure we can see everyone's questions if people are sending in comments. I'm a newbie at this, so if anybody can let me know how. Oh, you can do it. Oh, you'll just do the questions and do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be the moderator.
Yes, wonderful. Okay. So, first, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. If you didn't know how this whole anthology works, it was basically pairing the booktube world with the author world. As you know, we all love books, and there's this whole bookish corner of the internet. So I thought it would be a really cool idea to have booktubers work with authors, because so many of our booktubers are also creative, whether they're writing or they're just working on skits and other things like that. So I thought it'd be really cool to throw in prompts into the mix. So the booktubers came up with prompts, very limited, but not so specific that the authors would really have a hard time writing stories. And then the authors wrote stories, and then the booktubers also wrote creative pieces on why they chose their prompt or their thoughts on voting in general, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we are all here. I feel like everyone already knows who everyone is, but if you just want to like shout out your name, that's really, really awesome. I'm Ameriie of Books Beauty Ameriie, FYI, and I'm the editor of Because You Love to Hate Me. Ben, you introduce yourself. Ben, go.
Did you say me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I'm Ben, and I'm one of the contributors and the UK rep, I suppose.
Catriona Feeney.
Oh, hello. I'm Catriona from LittleBookOwl, and I'm so sorry. I literally just rolled out of bed, so I'm like real snugged up right now.
It's crazy early for Catriona. It's like, I think 6 in the morning, right? 5 in the morning.
Yeah, I don't get up before 8, so this is hard.
Life. Christine.
Oh, I'm next in the lineup. Hi, I'm Christine from polandbananasBOOKS. Hello.
Jesse.
Hey, I'm Jesse, and my YouTube channel is JessetheReader.
Regan.
Oh, I'm next. Hi, I'm Regan from PeruseProject. That's who I am.
Sophia.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from the Book Basement.
Tina.
Hey, I'm Tina from the Lushables.
Zoe. Oh, Whitney.
Oh, wait, no.
Wow, okay. I'm Whitney, I'm from WhittyNovels.
Woohoo!
Save the best for last. I'm Zoe from readbyzoe. Hello.
Hi. Thank you guys for joining us. It looks like there's 74 people watching us right now. First, I just wanted to, you know what? I want to let's just get a couple of questions before we go into like the other questions that I have for you guys. Just get a couple questions from Jesse.
Okay, I have one to start us off. If you could be any villain from any book or movie, which one would you be?
Oh gosh.
Who wants to start us off?
I don't know. Feel free to jump in there.
I'll start. I'll go. I would love to be Count Olaf from the series Unfortunate Events because he's just like over the top and ridiculous, and that's all. Like that's me basically. So I would love to be him.
I'm such a weenie. I wouldn't want to be a villain.
You wouldn't?
No, I mean, I just want to be nice to people. If I was a villain, I'd be like so petty. I'd be like the petty villain. Who's a petty villain that I can just be?
Just like subtweet people like that.
Yeah. I'm just like that one really annoying subtweeter you always have.
Are we talking about like being the villain actually, or like just playing the villain? Because then you have to take on their like sad backstory and like.
Yeah, because everyone's mostly when someone's a villain is because they've like had a really bad situation. So yeah, it's basically saying you just want to feel horrible about yourself. Yeah, I'd probably pass on that one.
I don't know. Could I be like a villain that like reforms themselves in like a complex way? Like, can I be like Malfoy? Because in the first like 3-4 books, he's Harry's villain, but then he kind of goes through some arcs and he still's got magic. That's what I'd go with.
Or like a villain like Ben Linus. Like he's like sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. Like Loki. Like you never.
Yeah, I was thinking Loki, but I was like, I don't really want to deal with all that hair, so I was like, I'm gonna go with Malfoy instead.
Cool. Let's get another one.
What is your favorite type of villain?
Warner.
Literally,
Every time we talk about villains, the only thing that's gonna pop into my mind is.
Wait, is it Warren from Bone Season?
What?
Wait, where's he?
He's from Shatter Me.
Oh, I never heard Shatter Me. I'm not familiar. Sorry.
I have to go.
When he's
You
like,
have offended Whitney?
My favorite type of villain is somebody who, my favorite type of villain, it has to be somebody who has a really good reason for it. I don't really like it when someone's just like, I'm going to just blow up the world just because. Like, there has to be like a legitimate reason why they're a villain. Because then I might actually be on their side. Like, okay, I can kind of see things your way. But that's because Christine knows, as we talked about this last night, I don't really totally believe in good and evil anyway. It's the concept of good and evil. And I do feel like, we'll get into that. Actually, we can get into that now. How about that? So first of all, what do you guys think about the concept of good and evil? The reason why I wanted to do a villain anthology in the first place is because I'm like really, really intrigued by the idea of right and wrong, morality, how we define what is right and wrong, and if something is wrong now, if it can be made right later. Right. Meaning, like my belief is like every civilization, every powerful civilization has been built on blood, right? You just don't have one. Later now we can say, okay, well, it's not good to do this, it's not good to do that, but it's like it's not hypocritical, but it's kind of like we can't ignore the fact that the reason why, for instance, we even have a United States is because of all the things that happened. The reason why the United States was able to advance is because we had free labor with slavery. The reason why we had all of these things, the reason that we had all this trade and why people were drinking tea in England was because of slave trade and just all of this stuff. So it's almost like, I'm just saying, one could say, well, it seems like things that are evil are bad, but if you wait a while, things can get better. And then we can just sip our lattes and say, oh my goodness, it's so terrible, but we wouldn't be here if it weren't for those things. So I'm not saying that those are right, but it's just like, it's almost hypocritical to point the finger and say, well, that's horrible. They shouldn't do that, right? Same reason why people are like, why should we tell China, not to use all this natural gas when that's kind of like how we got ahead, but now we're trying to shut it down for the environment. But when it was working for us, it was okay. That kind of thing. So really what I want to ask you guys is, do you even believe in the concept of good and evil? Like, do you believe that exists?
This is a very philosophical question.
Very deep.
I think
I
it's
think I wasn't half of sleep.
Regan,
I think it's on this. So I feel like morality is a question that we could go on. We could take a whole philosophy class on that. But I think you kind of touched on some ideas of power and the power in morality and like who defines what's good and evil. I think there's an idea to be said about like every villain is a hero in their own story. So obviously they're going to make exceptions for themselves when they're doing something because they have an idea of what the ends justify the means. I also think it was interesting how you touched on the idea of power dynamics in terms of globalization and like the economy and the expansion of what is right and wrong in terms of like expanding the economy, in terms of obviously Western countries have gone about doing some sort of how they've expanded through industrialization, the use of labor. Obviously, we now consider to be like that's not the proper amount, but it's ironic because we're like, well, we did that, but now you can't do that. So who's to say, you know, that's okay? And some people kind of point to that as to being a new type of imperialism, like labor imperialism, to kind of keep countries from doing certain things because it's no longer moral. Obviously, I think good and evil, there is no good and there is no evil. I think everything is on a scale. But I also feel like I think we should be, as a society, be pointing to things and being like, that's not okay. And even though at one point it was okay, doesn't mean because they got to do it, like everyone gets to do it. So I definitely think there's a lot of nuances to the concepts of good and evil, especially when you kind of reference some global political issues. That shit can get like, that stuff can get very confusing, and like there's a lot of, well, what about this? What about this? But in terms of villains and characters and novels, I definitely think every villain is a hero to their own story, which I think is what makes them so interesting. Obviously, everything that they're doing, they feel like is justified. They're not just doing it because they just feel like it. Maybe some people are, but for the most part, they all have an end goal where they feel like they're ultimately doing something that's important, which I think is really interesting to dive into villains' minds like that.
Yeah, we're gonna see. You guys feel free, and if you don't have an answer for that, that's fine, because everyone doesn't have to answer each time. We're gonna see how bad it everybody really is, because I have another question for you guys. So, Christine and I, we were all talking yesterday about Harry Potter. I was saying how I love it, but Christine also made a really good point regarding like the reason why he couldn't do certain things. So that I was like, I wasn't thinking about it that way. One thing that really makes me mad about Harry is that, see, like I do feel like a lot of times the bad guy, like the villains, they do the things that we're mostly afraid to do, right? Like in the final scene, sorry, no spoilers, like has someone not read Harry Potter, the final book? I feel like we all have, but I feel like there was someone who hadn't. Okay.
You're talking to a BookTube panel.
Harry, wait, who hasn't though? I think Benjaminoftomes has not read Harry. Someone has not read Harry Potter, and I can't remember who.
Sasha hasn't actually read it, but she's seen the movies. I think most of us have seen
Okay, sure. Okay, so in the movie, Harry's running through through Hogwarts, and it's like the final situation. He's like Expelliarmus, you know, maybe sneak by a little bit, but he doesn't kill anyone, right? But that really made me upset because to me, I felt like Harry is our hero, but he doesn't kill anyone because he has to keep his hands clean. But me running behind Harry Potter, that leaves the Death Eater for me. I am going to have to be forced to kill someone because you couldn't do the hard thing. So one, this has like two parts. One, how do you feel about that? Two, it's the whole question of like the hard thing. Hitler is a baby. Do you kill Hitler as a baby or do you let him live? If you know that he's going to kill millions of people later, is all those millions of people's blood on your hands, or are you innocent because you didn't do anything, or are you guilty because you're a bystander? Then that brings me to this other thing, which is the whole train situation. I don't know if you guys heard of this scenario, but basically you have a train that can go on 2 tracks. If it goes this way, it's gonna, okay, Regan's familiar with this one, right? Yeah. It's gonna kill 5 people, or you can divert the train where it will only run over 2. Well, which one would you, most people would say, oh, I would just divert the train so it just kills 2 people if I had to choose. Then the next scenario is, well, if you have the train and it can kill 5 people, but if you push 1 person onto the tracks, it will divert the train and will kill the 1 person that you pushed, but you will save 5 people. Did I get that right, Regan? I think
yeah. There's something with like someone you know, like one of the person you know.
Yeah. Or like it's a baby. It's basically just making you more accountable for like death, essentially, to save more people.
Yeah. So it's like those things. What do you think? Would you push Would you push? Wait, do you have to push someone that you know? What if it's someone that you don't know though? Right?
Even still, like you're killing someone.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
more
like-
actively involved in like killing someone to save more people.
You have to make the leader. It's like a very The 100 situation that we see with Clark all over and over again. About the Harry Potter thing, I feel like another thing with Harry not killing everyone is that a lot of the people are like Death Eaters that you don't necessarily know how bad they are too. Like they could just have been swept up in the whole Voldemort craze, and they're there, but they're not there because necessarily they really want to. It's because they're cowards and they like hid behind the person they thought was the biggest, threat to them.
Right.
But also like Harry, I think just in general, like I think it's about not killing people, but like being more creative with the way that you take them down. Like Mrs. Weasley, she kills Bellatrix, but she doesn't Avada Kedavra her. She like does some weird like squeezing frozen thing. She explodes in the movie.
Isn't that like meaner though? You just made someone explode.
But Avada Kedavra like rips your soul. So like there's that whole ordeal there. And it's an unforgivable curse. So why isn't every way to kill someone unforgivable? Like, where does that fall on the spectrum? But like, they could have like net people. I feel like Harry could have gone around with a spell that shoots a net and been like, did not.
I wonder if we should take another question, Jesse.
Yeah, I have one right
Boy,
here.
Jesse's
This
like
one.
our correspondent. He's like, we should take another question. Jesse?
This one comes from Maureen Keevy, who's another booktuber, and she asks, if you could swap any two villains from popular books, who would you switch?
Wait, swapping like...
Yeah, swapping villains from different stories, like taking Umbridge from Harry Potter and swapping it with Sebastian or something from...
If I supply one character, will someone else supply another character? Because I really want to say Kaz Brecker, but I have no idea who I'd swap him with. He's not a villain though, wait. Never mind. I'm thinking characters. Okay, I love Kaz Brecker.
Yeah, it could be a villain.
I'm really tired. Can you tell?
Wake up, Whitney.
The Darkling.
I was actually thinking,
I was thinking Darkling too. Switching him with some. The Darkling in the
Umbridge.
The Darkling is Vladimir Putin. I'm just kidding.
I think that. Looking at my bookshelf, yeah.
I just really want to put like Voldemort or someone in like a contemporary. So funny.
You make Voldemort like the popular girl at school.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Or like Voldemort in Twilight.
Oh dear.
Kill everybody.
Well, there's all those posts that are like, why didn't Voldemort just use a gun? So it's like if someone put him in like a contemporary society, there'd be so many other like actual physical weapons that could be used against him, and he'd just be sitting there like my wand, and someone's like, okay, bam.
It can work. Oh, I would probably die out. Be helpless without his wand. Actually, he can still fly, so.
It's true.
Why can I suddenly think of like no villains? I feel like I've read no books.
Well, okay.
Like, what is a villain? Who
I
defines a
thought
villain?
Count Olaf as like Umbridge character would be kind of funny. Could you imagine Count Olaf being like the headmaster of Hogwarts? Like that would be horrible.
Oh, God.
I want to read that fan fiction.
Yeah, like I think that would be funny.
Yes.
Maxwell from Well Done Books says Voldemort and Regina George.
Yes.
Can you imagine him doing the Jingle Bell Rock?
Hot.
One of the things too that we were talking about before was like, well, before we get to, someone was just asking too about villains and feeling sorry for them, but also like about people. Like, do you feel like people are, you know how Anne Frank said that she thinks that at the end of the day, people are at their core good? Do you believe that people are good, or people are inherently not evil, but I don't know, I guess evil, bad, you know, maybe evil is a strong word. Are people inherently good or not?
I think it's an acquired trait, is how I interpret that. I think, I don't know what I think. That's the one thing I wanted to say, then I kept going and I don't know what to say anymore.
I mean, like, I don't know any actual villains in real life or anything to like give you so much more insight into their head. It's a hard one to.
But just even people, like not even villains.
No, that's
just
what I mean.
Oh,
I don't know anyone who's like pure evil to like really get a rounded idea of them.
I feel like what Regan said earlier about intentions, like I feel like people are good, but not everyone is from where we look at them, as in like people like, for example, TRUMP. I feel like he thinks he's a good person because what he's trying to achieve is in his mind good, but then to let everyone else is not. So like, does he think he's good in the core, but everyone else doesn't? Do you know what I mean? Or am I waffling?
Yeah, no, I
Perspective.
I think that about him sometimes, because the thing about Trump is that he does really want to be liked. Like I remember back in the day, like he had a wedding with Melania's wedding, and everyone went to his wedding. Like the Clintons went to his wedding. I think Snoop went to his wedding. Puffy went to his wedding. Martha Stewart went to his. It was like this whole thing. Like he really likes to be liked. But I think a lot of the things that he says comes from him just being really privileged, and then also him not understanding his privilege, and then also that he's not that everyone would be this way, but he's as racist and as sexist as someone in his position would be, without any mind-opening experiences in which he changes. Like I don't really believe in good and evil. I think even if you think about the most sadistic act, something's maybe actually mentally wrong with that person. I don't believe also that like evil is a spirit. You know, like when people say, "Oh, it's just a spirit," I don't believe that either. I tend to think that actually, like I used to think that humans are inherently good, but now I think that humans are inherently self-serving. And I think that we want to be good and we try to be good, and we have so much capacity to love. Like you see like disasters where people are like helping each other, like come to my house, please come over and let me help you. And I think there's something about us that like on a spiritual level, we're trying to be good, but then I'm like, let the zombie apocalypse come down and start knocking on doors. And if people want to let you in, or if they're like, no one else can come in, we need to protect ourselves. We can't be in a group. It's like, I think that just like when people say in books, like when authors put their characters, they put pressure on their characters. That's how you know like who your character is when you're writing them. Their character is going to come out from pressure. When you put pressure on human beings, that's when you really see like who we are. And there's a lot of writers who feel like at our core, we're just animals. That's who we are as fundamentally. And it's sad. And I don't necessarily think that, but I think when you put it to the test, we do what we need to do to survive. And that can mean many different things. But then we can also have so much capacity for love and like, what is it? You know, our attachment to other people, connection. Yeah, that's right.
Did we determine last night whether or not you would let someone in for if there was a zombie apocalypse? Or
I don't know. I'm gonna keep it really real with you. I don't know. The thing about it is there's a part of me who is like, we need to do what we need to do. This boat is getting heavy. We need to let everyone that we can on this boat, or let everyone we can in the house. I think we need to let everyone we can in the house. But there's another part of me that's like, more people tend to mess you up in the zombie apocalypse because you are more susceptible to contagion. And then people are loud. You can't control everyone. Someone's going to want to turn on the light. But there's a part of me that feels like I would let people in. But I'm not sure. Like if my sister were there and my sister, I was just like trying to take care of her. And then, I don't know, these stragglers coming in. I can't say that I would and I can't say that I wouldn't. I really don't know. But I'm also the same person who, if a person were trying to break into my house, I'd probably be too scared to like break a vase over their head. Like I'd feel bad. Like, you know, so I don't know. I mean, what about you guys?
With that zombie situation, I feel like you have to have like a limit. Like if you're gonna let people in, be like, okay, I can let 2, and then I'm closing the door.
I just read a short story that's about that exact thing where there's an apocalypse, and the apocalypse was that like I guess they were by the coast or something, and the ocean was rising, and it was these 2 neighbors, and one of them was really well off and like super rich, and he decided to lock his doors. He wasn't gonna let anyone in. The house next door let in anyone. So it wasn't a zombie thing, it was an apocalypse thing. But you saw throughout the duration of the short story how this house next door, they ran out of supplies. The house was falling apart because the water was rising and all that stuff. And I just thought it was really interesting how you see the polarization between someone who's giving, yet how that can be a negative, versus someone who's selfish. And in the end, I don't want to spoil the story, it's really good, but I haven't even told you what it is.
Can you tell us again the short story?
Yeah, I'm looking it up on my Goodreads right now. I just read it it won the O. Henry Prize in 2016. Give me 2 seconds.
That's what they say, the road to perdition is paved with good intentions. Good intentions sometimes get you in trouble.
Yeah. And like watch so many seasons of The Walking Dead, and like
I used to love The Walking Dead. Did you watch everything? Are you all caught up?
I'm not. I stopped watching when the big thing happened last season, and it really, really hurt my soul. But I watched a lot. I've watched a lot of zombie apocalypse. I feel like I know. Like
the story I was talking about is called Bounty by Diana Cook.
It sounds really cool. So I kind of want to make the argument of like, so to me, the concept of good and evil are entirely constructed by society and like what society thinks is good and what society thinks is evil, and then how we fall into that. And I also feel like humans themselves are mostly influenced by their environments and how they interact within society itself. So I almost feel like the argument of like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse is still like, our answers are still entirely constructed on how we were raised to react in a zombie apocalypse. Like, there's so many examples of movies and pop culture of like, well, this is, I mean, we've never really experienced it. So we're like, oh, well, if you let people in, this is what happens. If you don't let people in, this is what happens. And so then we kind of construct ideas of how we'd react around that. And so, I don't know. Like, is it bad? Is it good? I don't really have an answer for this. I'm merely just saying, like, even scenarios of playing out, like, what is good and what is bad is completely just created by the world that we live in. But does it actually good or bad?
Like good and bad, when you're letting someone in, it's all about how much food you have and how much space you have. It's like, it's all logistical. Like, it's not even having to do with good and bad. It's just like, okay, we can't survive with more than 5 people. We'll all just die. Yeah.
You know, though, it's interesting, and we don't have to go too far into this, but what you're saying, both of you, makes so much sense. This is the argument that a lot of people have against, like, immigration. And I've been to places, which I won't name, in which you're not even allowed to like become a citizen ever. But these citizens who do live there get like so much money from the government, they don't even really work a lot. But it's also because there's not a lot of citizens, period. We are in a different country, but it's kind of like when it comes to logistics and stuff, I think those are the hard decisions. But it's like, when do you know, even if it's in your face, if it's something that you see, like when someone's coming to your door, it's like you can let them in or not. But then there's so many things that happen in this world that, like, I remember in history class, we were learning about the slave trade and just like how people around the world were enjoying tea, but not really realizing how the tea was, getting to their table. And were they like implicit in helping because of the demand for tea, like in England. And at the time I remember thinking, oh, that's just so terrible that they're just drinking their tea and they don't even care. But then I think about us now and like how there's so many things that happen and things that we enjoy, you know what I mean? And we all do it. And I'm not saying we all have to like stop everything, stop eating this and stop wearing these clothes. Because that's like, you know, I don't know. It becomes a lot. But then it's like, well, are we implicit? Are we not? Is it different because it's not in our face? I mean, where's the responsibility end? And these are the things that, you know, just tying it back into the book and everything, these are the things that like villains have to deal with. Like I think Christina said something really, really poignant yesterday, and she was like, you have to choose to be good. Like it's a decision. And I really agree with that. I really stuck in my mind.
Really going so deep. Every time there's like a level point, you're like, but.
Because you know what, that's probably me. I don't think I really have a lot of like conversations unless I'm just like, it's just something funny that I see. But in terms of the anthology, that is like what I really want to explore, because it's just like there's so many different sides, right? There's so many different sides, and there are as many sides as there are people and personalities. I think we should get to the question. I'm sorry, Sophia, because Sophia didn't say anything.
Yeah, the thing about conversations that like have a lot of people is that I'll have a thought, and then by the time that I've like constructed even a coherent thought, like to actually say, we're like past that conversation point.
No, Joy, but you can bring it back. You can say, bringing it back to what we were saying before.
Yeah, going back to the question of like whether people in general are good or evil, or good or bad. I feel like that's difficult to determine or difficult to like claim in general, but I feel like as an individual, I feel like we individually believe that we're good. Like even if we do bad things, at the end of the day, I feel like we always convince ourselves that ultimately we've done more good than we've done harm. And so I like, as a person, as an individual, I'm good. And I feel like that's what everyone thinks. So it's like back to like, my tagline, I think, is like, I'm the villain in my own story. I feel like no one genuinely believes that we are the villains, like in our own story. I feel like we always think that we're good at the end of the day. And also back to your point of whether people are at the core good. You said that you think that people at the core are self-serving. And I think that's a really compelling idea, actually, because if we think about it, I think there's an argument to be made that even if we're doing things that are good, if we're doing a good deed, if we're doing an act of kindness or anything like that, maybe we're actually doing it for ourselves because we're getting a reward from either our society or from our religion or from like our personal belief system. Like, I think there's an argument to be made that like any kind of act of kindness or any kind of good deed that we do does have a selfish like impetus behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's the argument behind that whole self-serving thing, because the argument behind that is that even when we give to charity and no one knows about it and you don't tell anyone, that it makes you feel good, that it made you feel good that you were able to help someone. That good feeling is the thing that drives you to give to charity. So we are still driven by this need to survive and the need to feel good, if you look at it like that.
But I feel like you can't look at it like that. You don't give to charity because like, I want to feel better. Let's see what I could do today. Give to charity. Like, give to charity because you only need it. And then you feel good because you're helping.
I feel like I think it's impossible to like boil down anything to its pure essence because there's so many components to like why behavior is a thing. So I guess it's like, yeah, I think there's always an element of like, I enjoy this, but I wouldn't necessarily like, at least I'd maybe not want to hope that that is the 100% only driving factor someone likes to do things. While I do think there's a component of it in everything we do, but I also just feel like there's a lot of nuances to behavior, like self-serving, yes, but like also ultimately I like to think people do things to help people, and I think that's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm an optimist. I don't know.
I wish that feeling could stay longer. You know how when there are disasters or whatever, and then people like come together, you just like feel everyone coming together. But it never like it never lasts very long. You know, it's just such a short. I think it's easy for us to forget. Yeah. I think we should go to another question, Jesse.
All right, I have one. Are there any villains you feel or felt sorry for?
Magneto.
Magneto.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
For sure. He's got so many arcs, and like depending on where you look at it, from like the original trilogy to the new trilogy to the comics, like he's got so many different, like for example, like the new film where he kills all, I don't know, okay. He kills a lot of people because they do something to somebody he loves. Ultimately, he's doing it because something terrible has happened to somebody that is ridiculously close to him. So in that moment, you're like, oh my God, this is awful. What would you do if you're in the same position and you were around a group of people who had essentially murdered something so innocent and so, you know. But then again, on the other hand, without even necessarily blinking or flinching or like whatever, or showing any sign that he was going to do it, he is able to kill like a huge group of people in a heartbeat. It's like he can do that whilst he's sobbing over what has just happened. So he's like a character I feel sorry for, because I feel like all of the things he's gone through in his life has driven him. And I feel like you can see that he has this inner turmoil and he doesn't want to make bad decisions, but there's this little person on his shoulder that's constantly telling him to, you know, choose the wrong path in a way.
That's a really good one.
I feel like anti-heroes are people like that I end up feeling sorry for a lot because like you see them. I mean, sometimes they redeem themselves, but most of the time their path it's like they're just make poorer and poorer decisions until you get to the point where like, ugh, you've become such a horrible person, but like I understand how you got there and I feel so shitty about it, but there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Let's take another question.
All right. Do you think villains are redeemable, or is there a point where they go too far and cannot be forgiven?
Probably depends on who it is.
Animal violence is one that's hard. Like if someone, you know, when you see a movie or like, yeah, you read a book where someone like kills a dog or something, that's hard. But isn't it strange that we feel that a lot of people feel that way, but we don't necessarily feel like that if it's a person sometimes, but not the same way. Animals are really interesting though, so it's a little different. It's like a baby.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I was thinking about rape. I feel like if I hear about like a rapist or something, I don't know, like their redeemable aspects are suddenly so moot. So
I agree.
Yeah.
There's a book, I haven't read it. I was going to read it when you mentioned that, Sophia. It reminded me of that. It's a fantasy called Prince of Thorns. I don't know if I've seen it on Goodreads. Are you familiar, Jesse?
I think I've heard of that.
I've started reading it. I
Is
didn't
that
really.
the black one?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan. I couldn't get back to the main character.
Is it true that the main character raped someone?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I stopped reading it, because I just couldn't. I don't know. I couldn't follow a character. Like he's supposed to be this anti-hero character, and you're supposed to like follow him. And like personally, like I mean, like people can read whatever. I personally started it and was like, this isn't gonna work for me, so I put it down. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Watched are you anyone up to date with Orange is the New Black and Pt.2 and that card?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation where like she was raped, but he didn't think he was raping her, and then like she had this chance to get vengeance, but she chose to forgive him, and now they have a relationship. It's a weird situation. Like I never know how to feel about it because she has a weird outlook on it. It's different. I
think it's like a lot of redeemable villains. Like I love Tony Montana, Soprano. Someone was like, I think you like really like the gangsters, like the mob types. But I like a lot of those villains, like Tony Montana, Tony Soprano, and Walter White. But I think really what it is that even a villain, I think for people to love them and to feel like, okay, we can kind of like get on their boat, there needs to be like a code. Like Tony Montana would kill people, but he did not kill women and he did not kill children. Tony Soprano the same way. So I think when there is someone like the character in Prince of Thorns, where it's like, that should be something that's not that is part of someone's code, where they don't go that far. I think when there's no code, I think there's like we just can't respect it for the most part. Because there's like nothing that you like about that person then.
Okay, I have another question. If you were forced to follow one villain from any series, which would you stand behind?
I'm just looking.
Stand behind him, get a good view.
That's me and Michael Fassbender, Magneto. I'd follow him anywhere.
I agree. I second that.
I third that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, I'm not crying. My eye has just been steadily watering this entire life.
I was wondering that. I was like, geez, she's emotional today. Poor Whitney.
I look great.
Thank you.
You know what? Let me ask you. Let's go to a little bit of your writing and your work and everything. But first, let me ask: how has booktubing and/or blogging, how has that affected your reading and your writing as well?
I don't like go down the line with this.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot more, and reading a lot more I think really helps with your writing, because then you see what you really want to do with your own ideas and your own your own manuscripts, and I think that helps, and it also helps you develop your own style. So I think it forced me to read a lot more.
I think being on BookTube, it's just more than just creating content, right? You're a part of a community, and there's always a conversation going in a community. And so things like We Need Diverse Books, or like one of my favorite YouTubers is Martinez, and my name is Martinez, and she is always so good at pointing out things that might harm people, like if they're reading a book. And so I feel like just being more aware of things that could harm people, or being more aware of things that could really empower someone, that really affects my writing, because like as a woman of color, I feel more compelled to write things that are more attuned to my personal experiences, if that makes sense. Mm. Sorry, I like killed the conversation.
No, it's good. I think everyone's just waiting to see who's gonna, everyone's just thinking.
Let people talk, I feel like.
Yeah.
Who hasn't spoken that wants to say? I feel like I never shut up, so I just want to.
Zoe, what do you have to say about it?
I mean, I'm agreeing with everything you guys say, so I feel like I can't bring anything new to the conversation. So.
You always bring something new. You're a different brain, Zoe. Just speak.
I agree with what you guys said so far. If I have anything else, I'll come on in.
Well, I have another question if you guys want to move on to a different one.
Sure.
So, we're all on the internet, and in whether it's a lot or a little, but do you think that the internet makes us more empathetic to each other, or do you think it kind of desensitizes us to other people?
I think it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Because you can hide behind the screen. So you can go in either way. It connects people, but it also gives people something to hide behind. Mm-hmm. So, depends how you use it.
Right.
Cool.
I like to think the internet does more good than harm, though. Like, think about the amount of access to information, and also like the ability for people, like before, the people who were able to create things that reached a mass amount of people were so limited. But now with the internet, like anyone can do it, which just opens up the door to like so many new voices, so many new perspectives, so many opportunities to learn and gain new perspectives from other people. I mean, I love the internet, so I'm like an advocate of like, yes, cyberbullying is a problem, and we have a lot of issues with the internet, and there's a lot of anonymity problems where people feel like they can hide from their opinion. But I like to think without the internet, we would be so much further behind, and bringing issues to the forefront, or understanding what's happening globally, having conversations with people around the world, and being able to hear new perspectives. I like to think the internet has really helped with that, personally.
I agree.
Yeah. Preach, Regan, preach.
Do you guys want to share like what made you create your prompt? Like why you created that particular prompt, what it was?
I think working with Cindy's just so well known, especially in the indie world prior to the anthology, of being such a massive supporter of diversity. So I really wanted to make sure that my prompt was as simplistic as possible so she could just go with it. And I already knew she'd written a lot about Medusa in her previous indie published books anyway. So I thought, like, by going Medusa, go, quite simply, she had like full reign to take it wherever she wanted to. And I was really excited when she was able to merge, her Chinese culture with, my Greek mythology family, whatever. So yeah, I wanted to keep it really simple, and I loved that. I loved Cindy's story.
She loved that too as well, but she said that yesterday, Ben, that she loved that you gave her that, because it is what she did was part of her culture, but she loved that, you being Greek, it was part of your culture, and that was actually one thing that she did mention that she really liked a lot.
I love Cindy.
No, you guys have a whole little love affair going on. I mean, not that kind of love affair, but like the good kind. the platonic kind.
Mine was kind of the same. So the one that I did for Adam was a crime lord that, a female crime lord that has a mask. And originally it was kind of like inspired by like the Joker or Harley Quinn with like a mask of makeup. But I kept it quite simple as well, because obviously I wanted to have Adam to have pretty much free reign, but just kind of have that inspiration with the character. And with the actual character itself, I was thinking either like a Gentibent Joker or Harley Quinn, just kind of so fascinated by those characters and getting inside their brain. So that's what kind of prompted that prompt.
I loved his story, by the way, Kaz.
Oh, I love it as well. When I first read it, I was like, what is this? It was so good.
How about you, Jesse?
Honestly, like, to me, I was like going into it, I was really intimidated because this is like one of my favorite authors, and like you're giving them a prompt to write a story. Like it was like mind blowing. But for me, I really just like sat down and just like had a brainstorm session, and I ended up coming up with like Death waking up at the bottom of a well, and I was like, there we go, that's the one. I hope she chooses this one, and then she chose it, and she created this incredible story. So yeah.
It was a really good prompt, and also your piece was very poignant too. It was like a very like thoughtful. It was like a very. Victoria's writing is very like atmospheric, and I thought it was really great because your piece was also like quiet and it had a certain mood to it as well. It was a good match.
Thanks.
Regan, oh wait, Whitney, wait, different people are popping up. Anyone else join in with your prompt and what inspired you to create it, or just any little thing aside about it? Whitney, I'm sorry. Whitney, you just showed up on this. This is Whitney.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I mean, mine's kind of boring because April had sent the list of characters that like she is familiar with and would like to do, or like potentially, you know, like would be interested in writing about. And she'd written Gaston, and I was like, Beauty and the Beast is my favorite. I'm here for this. And so I don't know, I just kind of brainstormed like if we had an alternate world where, I don't know, I just kind of took that and ran because I love Gaston. He's the worst, but I love Beauty and the Beast, and I wanted to mess around and see, because okay, I think the ending of Beauty and the Beast was kind of a cop-out with Gaston just like falling off a roof conveniently. I was like, is he dead though? We didn't see a body. And so, I don't know, I messed with my prompt a lot, and then finally, I don't know, it's like, I'm glad she chose that one though, because I love Beauty and the Beast. I'm glad that we could play around with it, and I like the story that came out of it.
Can I ask Sophia this question? I really want to know her answer.
Yeah. What was the question about the prompt?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, so my prompt is about a dark sorcerer seeking omnipotence, inspired by Voldemort from Harry Potter. And the reason why I included that in the list of possible, like the brainstorm prompt session, was obviously because Harry Potter is like a modern classic, and I can't not pay homage to it. So, and I was really lucky because Sarah Ennie chose that out of all the prompts that I gave her, and she did such a great job with it. So,
awesome.
And you know another interesting thing too, Sophia's like one of the rare people you'll meet who doesn't actually usually like the villain or root for the villain at all. Like, you know how you're like, oh, I'm intrigued by the great characters or the villain. She's actually like, nope, I'm not here for that. I think you're like the only person.
I just feel like they're so often underdeveloped, you know? Like, I feel like they don't get enough, like the author or the creator usually doesn't put enough attention to creating like more dimensions to that character other than just the fact that they're against our protagonist, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel when you told me that, you were like, you're the only person in this anthology who didn't like villains originally. I was like, I've done something wrong. Like, I was the right person for this.
No, it's good. It's always good to get a different perspective. I think that's really cool about this project. Hey, oh, that's my mom. Sorry, I have my mom face on me. I'm like, Mommy, I'm doing something right now. I'm right back. So as we come closer to a close, yeah, that's one of the things that I really love about the anthology is that there are so many voices, there's so many perspectives. We all have our views, and of course, you know, there's so much to sift through when it comes to like great characters. But even in that, even if you feel like I'm intrigued by great characters, they're so specific, and that's the thing that everyone had in their pieces. Everyone attacked this whole thing from a different perspective. And even when we're talking about good and evil and you know, globalization and just everything. There's so many little things, and there's really, I really don't even think there's a right or a wrong. That's another thing. I believe that something's a right and wrong, but then at the same time, I also believe that that it's all relative. So it's just really interesting to just hear everyone's perspectives on just villainy and the world, because ultimately that's what literature is. You know, you're just not writing in this little bubble. You're writing to say something about the world. But before I leave, if someone did mention something really cool, which we're gonna get to in a second, I wanted to know what you guys are like hand selling to people right now, what you're reading, what you're loving, that you think everyone should check out. Somebody mentioned, Rebecca mentions You by Carolyn Kepnes, and she said, what did you think about reading from the point of the view villain Joe? That's like one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. You by Carolyn Kepnes is freaking amazing. It's especially the first one, but the second one's great too. So, you know, that's one of them. That's great. Have you guys read that yet?
No.
At all?
I want to look it up right now, though.
You by Carolyn Kepnes. Let me tell you, this audiobook is really, really great. It's so good that the actor who plays Joe is known as that character, as if it were a movie. Like, that's how synonymous he is. It's really weird. It's really creepy. It's really going to make you rethink what you have on your social media regarding how people know when and where and what and how about you. I highly recommend that as well. I'm glad Rebecca mentioned that. But yeah, reading currently. Oh, let me just start. A Little Life. I'm prepared. I think I'm prepared. I'm not sure, but I'm reading A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and I really love it. And as for my recommendation, right now I would say The Mix by Nathan Hill, which is amazing. And I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu is also fantastic. Yes, yes. What about you, Ben?
I'm currently reading a book called Talented by Sophie Davis, but I haven't started it yet, but that's like the next one of what I'm going to do after this. But I think for recommendations, I want to just shove Six of Crows in so many faces.
Yes.
So good. Like, I read it for the second time, and I've planned the wedding. Me and Kaz are like getting married this autumn. I'm really looking forward to it. No, it's really good. I'd love it. I just love Leigh Bardugo. I think just Leigh Bardugo for me is like another J.K. Rowling in my eyes. Just all her worlds and characters. So just read anything by Leigh. I love her.
Catriona, how about you?
Well, just first of all, I keep getting confused when people say Kaz, because that's obviously my name, like, that I go by. So I was like, oh, Ben will be here. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, I'm disappointed. But the last book that absolutely destroyed me was Strange the Dreamer. And that's actually probably a really interesting one to think about in terms of villains, because we do follow two different perspectives, and like, they kind of see each other as the enemy anyway, but you obviously get to learn a little bit more about that, and it's much more complex than that. So that's a really interesting one to look at. But it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I second that. That'll be my answer too.
Yeah.
I'll just piggyback off that.
What about you, Christine?
Right now, I'm reading Act of War. That was a boring answer. It's too like mainstream. And
no, you shouldn't feel shamed because it's popular. It's popular for a reason. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just mean like it's not bringing anything new that you haven't read right now.
Well, how about a rec?
I mean, like, what have I just read? I've been pushing The Circle in audiobook form because I think that is a really good one for anyone who's like really involved in the internet to read. It just like, I don't know, it's like an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I loved it. Yeah, I'll say that. The Circle audiobook. Do the audiobook.
The one by Dave Eggers? Is it the one by Dave Eggers?
Dave Eggers, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Jesse?
Well, I just finished rereading The Golden Compass, but as far as like a recommendation goes, I would say Geekerella by Ashley Poston. Is that her name? So it's fantastic. It's so good. Like, if you're involved in any kind of fandom, you'll love this book. It's so good.
Wonderful. And we already know Regan loves Strange the Dreamer. But you know what, Regan, you didn't give us a book that you want to push on to us, like a rec. Or was that Strange the Dreamer?
I mean, I think Strange the Dreamer, in terms of how Laini Taylor plays with the concept of what a villain is and like how she deals with generational hatred between people, I think that book's really, really good. In terms of what I'm like reading right now, I'm currently reading Walk on Earth a Stranger by Ray Carson, which is also pretty good. So would recommend that.
Awesome. Sophia?
I'm sure Ben will be super thrilled about this, but I'm currently reading Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. So earlier when Whitney was answering like a villain question and she talked about Kaz, I was like shook. I was like, Kaz is our villain? What? I love him already though. And then as for a recommendation, this isn't a recent book by any means, and I read it a couple of years ago, but I'm still gonna shove it down everyone's throat. It's Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alita. Just one of the best books I've ever read. So good.
And next is, I think Tina's next, but she just sent, her screen is frozen, so she said in case she can't get back on because her computer went out, she says her rec is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. And she said to piggyback off Jesse, it also discusses fandom and creating things. Yeah, so that's great. And Whitney?
I'm on the final book in the Shades of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. Jesse?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's really good. I'm really invested. It's like 700 pages long for the final book, but I'm all over it. It's really good at this point.
How about you, Zoe?
Okay. I'm currently reading the Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which the narrator for the audiobook was the first Tom Riddle in like Chamber of Secrets. I was listening to it and like his voice sounds so nice. I love it. And then Emma from Emma Books tweeted me and was like, you know, it's Tom Riddle. It blew my mind. It's such a good audiobook. And my recommendation, I guess, would be Big Little Lies. I just read that like a month ago, and I really like it. It's really interesting about like, crime and families and all that. And I'm currently watching the HBO series. That's good.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I was wondering if Tina was going to be able to get back on, but I don't think she will. So I just want to thank everybody who's watching. Thanks for your questions, and everybody on the in the chat. Thank you guys so much for chatting and joining the group. I think it was really awesome to hang out. Christine's had like 2 of these in a row. She's like, okay. But it was really awesome. Woo! And I also wanted to thank you each also so much for just like blessing this anthology with your creativity. The anthology, really, for those who are watching, it would not exist with every single person. Like it took every single booktuber and blogger, every single author, each contributed so much. And like if you guys are thinking it was just like written and then the author just wrote the short stories or the booktubers just threw the prompts and then just wrote their parts, no. Everything was like, everyone was going through edits, and the booktubers thought very hard about the prompts and their pieces, and it was just like, there's a lot of revisions. The authors are going through revisions. Like this is like a labor of love. And I'm really proud of it, and I'm really thankful too, and I'm really honored that you guys, you know, shared your creative juices into making this happen.
Well, thank you for picking us.
I hope you guys go check it out if you haven't already pre-ordered the book. Buy it. Barnes & Noble has a little mix-up. There's a little snafu there it's more of a behind-the-scenes boxing corporate type thing. So they'll have the book soon. But other bookstores have it in stores now, and then you can order it everywhere online, of course. So make sure you pick up your copy. And yeah, much love to everybody here.
Yay!
Thanks for having us later. Does anyone want to say anything?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.